excited.
You just fire hose of information, and then you have to try and disseminate what's relevant, what's important, how to prioritize it, how to actually make it actionable, and what to do with it. And so some people end up having a bit of a paralysis by perfection. And my opinion is always to just take that step. And I think innovation comes from just taking steps. And I'll give you a good example, a personal one of mine, where I don't think I've ever really made a big decision in my life. It's all a bunch of smaller decisions. And the best example of that is when I left Toronto. I was living there for 7 years. I was in advertising. I had just broken up with a girl for 10 years. And that night, I also got into a fight with the CEO of our advertising company. And the next day, I said, forget it. I'm out of here. So I actually got in my car and I drove for 6 months. And I stopped. I didn't drive continually. I drove for 6 months and stopped in various places to see where I was going to start my own advertising agency. Halifax and Calgary were the two big ones. I would just meet people. I would phone up agencies. I would phone up the chambers. I would just meet people in bars, sleep on couches, do whatever I had to, because I wanted to start something interesting. And I wanted to innovate and create my own space. I ended up picking Calgary because when you walk down the street here, somebody looks you in the eye. You walk down Calgary, they shake your hand. You phone somebody up and you say, I want to do something. I want to start an agency in Calgary. You might take in 15 minutes. They'll take the 15 minutes and they'll actually give you an hour. Then they'll introduce you to a few more people. And I thought, that's a place I want to actually do business. And when I look back at that decision, I don't think it was a big decision because I was always thinking, I want to get out of Toronto. Obviously, the relationship wasn't going very far. So making that move was simple. Starting a brewery was actually a simple conversation because I was thinking about that for many years. About starting one when I was at Big Rock, I thought, I wouldn't do it this way. I would try and do it a little bit different. So eventually, when they asked me to leave, that next day I started a brewery. That was an easy decision. But I'd already been thinking about it, so it didn't feel like it was that big. That same time, I actually started at Evans Hunt. Dan asked me to join his company, and I started doing business development for them, and now there's 80 people there. Again, it wasn't a big decision. It was actually quite easy, and all it takes is just take one step. So these guys that are going to come up right now, I think they've all gone through the exact same process of getting to a spot where they're actually brilliant in their own rights, and they've actually all done some spectacular things, but they all probably just took that one step each time to get to an interesting spot. So maybe I'll start by bringing up, I'm going to bring up, starting on this seat here, hopefully I haven't screwed up the order. I'm going to say it's Adam. Come on up, Adam. Adam you guys, I'm not going to go into a big biographical description of any of these guys because you've already seen them all. But Adam obviously is a brilliant man. He's a global VP marketing, and he's responsible for the consumer conduit work at Arc'teryx. Just so happens, my wife's favorite outdoor brand. I will take a coat now. Next up, Brooks. Come on up, Brooks. Brooks is, I'm going to just try and get free stuff all the way through here. Brooks is a founder and CEO of Hitcase, of which we have 3 Hitcases in my house, just so you know. Unfortunately, I'm the only one that doesn't have one. Just saying. We'll sort that out. All right. Doyle, come on up, Doyle. You're the next contestant. Doyle's obviously, you've just heard Doyle. He's focusing on leadership in a digital space, and he's actually quite brilliant, and it's going to be hard to stump him, but I'm going to try my best. Last up is our good friend Joel. Joel is a force of nature. He's a best-selling author, New York Times bestseller, and he's an interesting man. I've enjoyed my conversations with him already. All right, I need some beers. Could I just get some beers brought up here, please? These boys need beers before we start. This is the way we're going to get some real answers out of them. Thank you very much. Pick their personalities by the brand you give them, I guess.
Your choice. I'll take this one here if you want. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you. Cheers, fellas.
All right. No worries. Cheers, boys. All right. So, you've had, I always find when I come up on these presentations, I always end up doing my presentation, then I end up meeting people just off the stage. I get a few questions, and I start realizing some of the areas I might not have covered off that I wish I could go back and cover off. Something that maybe you're starting to learn because it's a different audience. Maybe it's thematic. Maybe you just got wound up on a particular topic, never finished your presentation. So Adam, maybe if there's anything that you think you might have missed or anything you want to try and reconfirm, is there a tidbit you can throw back at this crowd?
I don't think there's anything that I missed, but you know, if I sit there and reflect about what I talked about, and I think there's an opportunity to look at how some of those big consumer trends around mobile and you know, personalization, which Ethan talked about when he was here this morning, and try to sort of think about what those mean at a more grassroots community level in a place like Calgary. Because while you have those big trends that exist everywhere in the world, it's sometimes hard to sort of wrap your mind around, okay, well, what does that mean to me, right? Like, how do I take that and move forward with my business? So it would be interesting if we could get a bit of a dialogue between us and the audience around sort of tactical examples of where things like consumer advocacy or community or a digital footprint, or how those things can sort of impact them directly and give them sort of useful things to walk away with.
Do you, for the people in the audience, and if anybody has any questions at any time, just yell at me and I'll be happy to ask them a specific question. Because I don't want to ask all the questions. I think it's going to be important that you guys ask some as well. But the question I would have the moment you say that is, it's sometimes easy to say that when you have a bigger brand and you can talk about those things. Can you also take that down to a really tactical, tangible element for something that might have a shop, say, less on 17 that Dave is running here, where it's...
Well, Dave doesn't really need my help.
No, Dave does all right.
Dave's crushing it. But you know, it's interesting. I had a chance. So I've got a really good friend here in town and she just opened a bar studio called Barbell in the Mission. And you know, I went to visit her today, and I was super impressed by how her and her partner have managed to take their personalities and connect with people, and then at a community level, right? So at a one-on-one, human-to-human level. But then they've also managed to somehow capture that spirit of who they are in their social footprint. Right. And they've done it really in a nimble fashion, you know, using the toolkit that they've got, you know, with things like Instagram. And to me, that's a really good example of like, nail your own house, nail your product, like make sure that your experience is dialed when you walk in the door, make sure that you've got this super strong community connection point at a human level with your consumers. But then look at what the tools are out there and and just share it. So allow people that aren't within that ecosystem or are within that ecosystem but want to be a part of it every day, have access to it. And for me, that was sort of a really interesting application of where like she doesn't know, like she's not sitting there and studying big global consumer trends, right? She's just living her moment, right? But doing it really, really effectively, super intuitively, but doing it really, really effectively. And I think those are interesting case studies that you can pull in markets and learn from.
Feels very much like it's just an extension of who she is. Right?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Brooks, did anything you wanted to cover off that you might have missed earlier on today?
I did talk earlier on in the presentation about something about conversion, and then I think I left everybody hanging because I ran out of time. So everybody sort of struggles with the same problem right now, which is that you do brand marketing on the web or content marketing or any of the other names for it, and yet it doesn't turn into sales. And that's, I mean, I don't think that's unique to just, I think that everybody has the same problem. And the solution to that really is coming. It's not here yet, but when you look at things like Apple's just rolled out, Touch ID-based payments, and they're launched that, they pulled it in Sierra now, their new operating system. And if you look at what Facebook is doing with chatbots, and you look at what WhatsApp is doing with some of their tools, that conversion to sale is going to get a lot easier imminently here. And so just hold tight, we're getting there. That's it.
Okay, great. Thanks. Anybody have any questions for Brooks? All right, I'm going to go on to Doyle. Anything you want to, you just gave a presentation, so you haven't had a lot of time to reflect on that, but.
No, that's okay. I think that I covered most of what I wanted to. The only important message that perhaps wasn't, could have been emphasized a little bit more was just understanding the process too, right? Like we're kind of scattering here and there and that sort of thing, and we're shiny object syndrome over this and that sort of thing. It's just kind of find some focus and you can find innovation if you build a process. And I hope that message was clear. It's like if you create some steps, and yes, that's the engineering talking, but if you create some steps along the pathways, it's going to make it a lot easier. And then you can kind of sigh of relief to say, hey, it's not that hard. Like it can feel overwhelming, but if you break it down, make some steps, make a pattern out of it, create some behaviors, and then it becomes a lot easier to implement.
Excellent, thanks. Joel, anything?
Yeah, as I reflect on it a little bit, the initial title for the talk revolved around storytelling, and I alluded to it a bit, and I guess what I want to drive home is that you're all storytellers. If you'll notice yesterday, what I did is I just told you a bunch of stories that were designed to equip you, drop some knowledge on you, inspire you, entertain you. Most of all, inspire, because I think it's really the job of us as speakers to make you feel and believe and know that you can do the things that others who have gone before you have done. But ultimately, people buy what we have on the benefits, not the features. So whatever your widget does, they're buying it because of how it makes them feel in the end. So don't be afraid to tell your story and make that human connection, emotional connection with people, because that's what's going to have them like you, trust you, and want to buy from you.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to ask a question. I think it's an interesting question, and it stems from something that you said, Brooks. You said that don't do video unless you can do high quality video. Now, and I think there's I don't know that I take the opposite opinion. I certainly agree in quality, but there's an awful lot of other channels out there that are new and burgeoning that seem to be more fast and a little bit more raw. Where does that fit into that
I think it depends.
equation?
You want to define. I mean, it's kind of semantics. You talk about quality. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be big budget, like Hollywood level real. I think good quality, great content can take a lot of different forms, and sometimes you only really know it when you see it. And so, I think the focus is that there's a lot of. I mean, I'm a startup guy, right? You don't have enough cash. There's all these challenges that you have. And people will tell you, there's the easy stuff is to focus on marketing, like take another marketing class or, try to do a better Facebook post or whatever. Like the hard part is product and that kind of thing. And if you're squeezed for time and money, which invariably most businesses are, and you have the option to not do a video. We didn't have that option because we make a video product. If you have that option and you don't have enough resources, then focus your efforts on photography and that kind of thing, because it's an easier story to tell and it won't be as taxing on your organization. So far be it for me to say, I mean, we use video like crazy. I mean, if you're, you know, whether it's Instagram stories or Snapchat or any of these newer tools for video that are more real time, those are very powerful tools. We see greater engagement on stories than we've seen in a long time on Instagram because of that, the level of authenticity that's there. It's sort of a real-time thing. It's something that people engage with and are excited about. And those things are constantly changing. Those are trends that are changing all the time. So next year it'll be something else, you know. So, but I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it answers it. I'm just Joel. Anybody else have any thoughts on that before?
Personally, I think that a lot of businesses are taxed by that, you know, investment in social and digital and that sort of thing. So I kind of understand, Brooks, where you say, like, you want to create something of value and you want to create something like beneficial, but at the same time, we kind of have to start somewhere. And I think it's more important to kind of start. And yes, it is, if it is an iPhone cam that you're using to shoot some video of you at a presentation or just giving a webinar, whatever, start, right? It's sort of better to kind of get going. And yes, the big productions can come, but people are really tolerant of that. That's why, you know, Snapchat has come to be in live Facebook and that sort of thing, is because people are willing to accept you at face value and they see you with all the blemishes and everything else on your live video, and that's it. So yeah, get that message out there as quickly as you can.
And I feel like when you do a polished production, there's nothing wrong with that, having your lower thirds and fun little graphics and background music and switching cameras. That's great, but I think as consumers, when we see people delivering content that's, you know, hey, they're in their kitchen, and you know, if the CEO of a company can be as authentic and transparent and raw as possible without, you know, having to shoot himself, you know, in the shower or something, people feel like, hey, this is a real human being. I can identify with this. And there's something about the professional production, I think, that it creates this wall. It's because we feel like we're watching television, and it's this us and them. Oh, they're the talents, we are the consumers. But when, you know, a company picks up their phone and uses Periscope or Facebook Live and just starts streaming and talking to people, they feel like, hey, they're with me. They feel me.
It makes it personal.
And I think that's where I was having it, you know, because I look at the brand you just discussed. You know, it's an extension of who she is. So her doing a Periscope or a FaceTime Live or whatever might not be the highest, but it is a bit semantics. I don't think that's exactly.
It's a lot of work to do continual content too, right? Like it takes, you know, not everybody's great on camera. Not everybody knows how to do it, you know, a nice succinct piece, and it's a lot of work to have that continual flow. And sometimes you don't hit a lot of people with that. You know, like she might do a Periscope, and you know those are surviving now longer. But it's a Twitter type product, so it's kind of here now and gone. People don't go back in your Twitter feed, and so if you want something enduring that really is a brand message about what you are doing in your company and that kind of thing, then that's sort of where I was more pointing, I guess. Right?
Yeah, that's the point for sure.
We're definitely in this moment with video right now where live video is, because of the, you know, how much Facebook is promoting it. Mm-hmm. There's a moment in time that's happening right now that will go away, to your point, right? Like they're going to monetize it here in a heartbeat. Yeah. But we are living in this moment right now where you can really reach a lot of people through live video.
Yeah, same thing happened with likes, to your point, and then it was Instagram likes, and now you know the next thing. So
and it won't last.
Good window.
Right?
Yeah, I think so. They're pushing hard because if you look at Facebook and I think somebody was talking about yesterday, if you look at Facebook and Instagram, they've got basically as many impressions and views as YouTube does now in aggregate, which is insane when you think about it. And Facebook wants more, so live is the next push. And if they're really trying to eat TV, is what they're trying to do. So. By
the way, it pays to note that Snapchat has surpassed Facebook in terms of daily video views. Crazy. So it won't surprise me if they enter the live market soon.
It's hard though. Snapchat's hard as a business, right? Like it's you know, like, so we've played around a lot with Snapchat And it's a really difficult place to play as a brand or as a company.
You have to understand how to speak to that audience.
And it's
Because you can't click a link.
no, and you have to understand how to speak, and you have to speak in the way that works in Snapchat. And for us as a brand, you know, we can't really be goofy. You know what I mean? And so, like as a
But you
brand,
can still have fun.
Why not?
You're. But what are you about?
well, at the end of the day, you know, we have to make sure that everything that surrounds our brand supports that ethos of design.
It can't be sterile though. Either,
It can't be sterile either, which is the point. So it's really hard for us to find our voice in that space. Whereas,
It's
you know, it's
behind the curtain, I think.
a little
You
bit.
know what I mean?
I
we
do
can do that
think-
through Instagram
You can still be
stories.
the cool kids and, you know, have some like dirty sides.
Yeah, I disagree that there's not a way to make that cool and accessible via the Snapchat audience.
Like with a laughing, puking cat with rainbows.
Perfect, but don't forget
That's
to
why I
make
don't
it.
get upset.
Gotta make
Can't
it
really,
too.
I mean,
Do you think I've lost control?
yeah.
I'm not 100% sure that's going to work for us, but
I can help you with
It
that.
doesn't,
Yeah.
we have been either, so.
the thing about it, but this just comes down to choices, right? Like the reality is, you could play anywhere, right? And as a business or a brand or a company, you just got to make choices on where you're going to play.
Yeah.
And for us, we see Snapchat. We're going to be on Snapchat, but we also recognize that we're going to put more emphasis on Instagram stories than we're going to put on Snapchat.
When you've got your audience on Instagram already. And it would be completely hypocritical for me to should on you
Yeah.
and tell you you should be on Snapchat.
Well, we're there, you know.
But the video that Brooks that you did produce is like one of those. I think it's just a different category, right? It's very inspirational. It's very insightful. It's like, yeah, this is what I want my customers to aspire to, and that like fits the bill. But in terms of creating sort of that pathway, that story of your customers, well, not so much. But that's okay. The intent of the video was to inspire and to create an interest and insight into what you guys do.
Smaller and smaller audience for those videos, though, right? Like, you know, we're working with a great filmmaker right now called Jordan Manley on a series of videos called The Skier's Journey. And you know, 6-7 years ago when we launched that, it was just great content would just rise to the top wherever you put it. And now it's like, you know, you got to pay. And you got to push it super hard, and there's so much content out there that you can't get the eyeballs on it, and so which is okay because at the end of the day, you're really building that kind of content for your existing community, you know. And then but the content that seems to be resonating for us is live stuff, right? So we have someone at a climbing festival teaching rope skills, like our Facebook Live numbers go off the charts, or if we build like how-to video, how to wash your jacket, right? Like how to rappel. How to wax your snowboard from courtesy of the source. That stuff seems to be like the very sort of useful information that resonates a little bit more. So.
Well, people want to know how to do stuff,
Yeah.
right? They don't want to get it anymore from somebody else. It's like, yeah, how do I do this? I want to do that. I want to go hiking. I want to, live the adventure.
It's a good point. Think about when you Google for something, you know, and you want to learn how to do something, you usually do how to.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to title your videos that way.
You want to sort of stratify your content. So, like the iAdventure video, that's a hero piece for us. So we have probably 2 hero pieces that we've made in the last 12 months or something like that. They're expensive, time-consuming. Then from your hero pieces, you've got your sort of secondary content. That would be your really well-done how-tos, your product lineup, you know, sort of a little bit of a peek into more of what's going on. Something that's, you know, maybe longer form content, like maybe, you know, 4 or 5 minutes, like more of a story that your customer base that saw your hero video and was super stoked over that. Now they want to know more. You know, you gave them a taste, they want the next bite. That kind of content fits over there. And then you've got your sort of third string stuff, which is just, you know, kind of, you know, more the throwaway kind of content that you might use on Instagram or you know, whatever. And you can sort of play them off each other. So an idea sort of spawns. You'll do something over here, and you'll be like, damn, we got to get that into our next hero piece. Or, you know, you'll do something here that you can then push into your third string stuff because it'll just be like a microcosm of something you've covered over here. So you kind of get to where you just have a lot of content coming in, and then you can sort of parse it into these different zones. And you get a bit of a flow going to it after a while when you're sort of digesting a lot of content, and it requires really talented people that you can, you know, that you have to build a media company inside your own company. I mean, we are all media companies now, whether you like it or not. That's what we do. So take plays out of, you know, the big guys, you know, I mean, the way that they handle content, and apply it to your own businesses too, because it works. Live, whether it's live TV or movies or whatever. Same thing.
But I'll have to ask: does innovation come from random bits of video here and there, or does it come from what it sounds like you're doing? Is sort of you're categorizing, you're creating a plan, and going forward. So a question to the panel too is: does innovation come from randomness, or does it come from creating a process and creating?
Yes.
Yes. Which one?
Yeah, both in.
Yeah,
I think it's both.
The process is important because that sort of, you get a pipeline of content, and it gives you something to build on continually. So when you approach a new and innovative, like when we went into Discovery Channel, pitching this thing in January, Facebook Live didn't even exist yet.
Yeah.
We were sort of pitching this as like Shark Week, maybe it's a Periscope. Periscope was kind of shitty at the time too. Like the video quality was so bad, so we didn't really know if it was gonna be a good look for us, and we'd have to literally pull the plug at the last minute because the tools weren't there yet. So we went out well in advance of any of the tools being there to pitch these things, and then the tools thankfully showed up. I mean, Facebook launched Facebook launched live like a month before we went into Shark Week, and we were like, yes, because we knew that we could leverage that platform. And Discovery has like 42 million people on their Facebook page, and I think their Twitter is like 3 million or something like that. So we just like blew it through the roof, and they were super stoked about it. So you want to sort of see the trends coming down in terms of social media and be on top of those, so you know how to get in, how to leverage them when they show up, and so we've been lucky that way. Anyway,
I'm gonna take a look in the audience. Is there anybody that has a question? There's one over there. Yes. Can you guys hear him back there?
Give him the mic.
All right.
So a lot of these brands have long, intricate stories behind how they got to where they are. Now, how do you break that into micro content that you push out onto social media and online platforms?
You can serialize it. I think that automatically builds long-form content done short-term over time. Tell the story in bits and pieces. Chunk it down. Introduce people in one segment to somebody who was essential to that part of the process. Take them into the factory or the shop. Show them how the chocolate is made, right? And you just do it serial-wise, and you can drag that on for a long time, depending how long you've been in business and how many different things you've innovated along the way.
We used to sort of think about content through the lens of, let's produce something once, and then let's use it on all our different channels, right? And we've moved from there to really trying to build specifically for the platform and the channel. And we start with sort of an overarching consumer calendar for all the stories we want to tell, and a cadence of how often we want to be in what channel, and then what format we think is going to be the most relevant within that channel. And then we fill in the gaps between that with sort of really light production value, topical things that are happening in the moment. So it's a mix of things that are very strategically and planned out that reinforce our brand strategy, mixed with stuff that we just think is rad and happens in the moment, and we just share it to the world. But it's really been a big shift from like, we'll build it for the blog, and then we'll push it on Instagram, and we'll push it on Facebook, and we'll push it on Twitter, to being like, no, what's our blog story? And then what's a relevant extension of that was probably we're going to produce differently to work well on Instagram? And then how do we use Twitter to push our overall news stories? It's become very specific to the channel. And I think that's the key, right? Like, your brand doesn't change, your stories kind of don't change, but the platform is going to change constantly. And even though we have that calendar for a year out, to the point where you started, they started ideating around live storytelling before Facebook Live was there. Something different will be here a year from now, and so you can plan, but then you have to be sort of agile.
Do you have any guesses on what that next thing is? Help us out. What's missing in your portfolios right now that you say, I wish that was there?
Well, I don't know. There's lots. There's lots there. Right. I think the bigger question is, where do you choose to play, and always make sure you're you're dabbling in everything, so you can learn about it as fast as possible and just be nimble as things change. But you know, I gave up a long time ago trying to be a futurist and predict what was going to happen. So I just try
We have one
I'll-
on this.
I'll
We
jump
have
in
one
there.
here.
Yeah, so the thing about live as we have it now in Snapchat and Instagram stories is it's still very much one way, and then people can respond back. For a short time, for about a year, we had a site called Blab. Anybody that was on blab.im? A handful of you. And what it did is it allowed 4 people to jump on screen at any time. So I could host a show and interview somebody, but then people who were in the chat room could say, I want to take a seat. They'd click, and I'd let them in. Now they're on camera. And so it had this community type feel to it that was unlike anything else in social media, and that's why I called it the most social form of social media we have. The team at Blab did not do a good job monetizing it. They closed the door abruptly and left the whole community in the lurch. Now there's a few sites out there that allow the broadcast type feel to it where you can have multiple people on screen. There's Crowdcast, there's Huzza, there's Fire Talk, there's others on the horizon, but there's yet to be one to take the place to create this community feel. So I think the thing that is missing is the ability for individual communities to have that face-to-face, instant chat, engagement, and interaction. And whoever gets that right has the potential to really blow up.
Because you can see where the trends are taking us, and actually where the consumers are taking us, and they have that side of things where they want to get involved. So yes, there's sort of a gap between user-generated content and sort of the business side of generating this content. So that's the gap, is that I see that you're going to have something like Blab, but obviously a little bit different, that connects that so that you have the content being generated by your users, but it's sort of interacting and engaging at the same time with the business, like what you're trying to produce and the goals of the business as well. So you're going to see an overlap in mind.
Well, just thinking about Adam, right, in his business, to be able to have a community where you've got a
they're
host in the
producing,
room,
yeah.
and your customers or prospects could come in and chat with you. It could be used for support, but also talking about sports and skiing and mountain climbing and all these things. I think community, as we've connected the whole world, right? And we could all ping each other across the globe in half a second. Now we want to find the people who are interested in what we're interested in. And VR was one way that one of our speakers talked that is going to be a big deal. We're going to be attending conferences like this in the future virtually, which is going to be really wild. But creating communities within a brand is going to be essential.
If you look at like the post forum itself, right? We have all of you here today or over the last 2 days and tomorrow.
Just checking to make sure you're here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not virtual. Augmented, yes, but not virtual.
Don't go there.
But if you can connect with your users and bring them into a place, whether it's online or in a physical place, that's good. Like, can you imagine the next step for these types of conferences where it's a lot more interactive and through the use of your smartphone or tablet or whatever, you're actually part of the presentation. But at the same time, we've started that. Like, all of the people interested in marketing in Canada are here, right? So how do we actually take that to the next step? Well, it's connecting you with those devices and the technology and the ideas and the insights as well.
I think we've sort of hit the stage has been set now. Like, if you look at Facebook and you look at Instagram, and it didn't take a rocket scientist to sort of get to the leap of live video is going to be a thing. So when we were back in January, I've been talking about live video for longer than I can think of, because it was just a matter of, you've got the devices, now you have LTE networks, now you can stream video, now it's good enough quality, this is going to happen, and it's just a matter of, when the big guys sort of jump in. Facebook owns the social graph, that's not going to change for a while. Snapchat is innovated in a completely different way with a different type of a different type of content that nobody else can really replicate. And so they'll be, they're trying to figure out their own audiences and stuff at the same time. So the stage has sort of been set from a marketing standpoint. Like, you kind of have to place your bets a little bit on the platforms you're going to put energy into, and you don't want to spend a lot of time. We don't need to be futurists here at the end of the day. Yeah. Like, we just need to get the message across. We want to tell stories. Look at the things that allow you to tell stories and use them. And don't worry about the next thing so much. I don't disagree with you that the next thing is probably sharing, media experiences. And that, whether that happens in AR or VR, that's a 15-year paradigm. Like, there's only a million Oculus units that have shipped yet. Google hasn't even shipped their Daydream stuff, which is like this next VR thing. Like, nobody has these things, so don't worry about it. Like, let's talk in 12 months, probably 24, you know. Right now we got Instagram problems and Snapchat problems.
Well, that's a good point, is to focus on, you know, what's actually giving you that value and what's giving value for your customer as well, because you don't need to be everywhere. I mean, yes, you can carve out an audience, but test it and build it, and you know, if somebody comes, and great, and if not, well, then you have to adjust something, but you don't have to go chasing the next best thing too, right? Because the technology will just overtake you, and you'll spend more time, waste more time dealing with that, as opposed to actually telling your story and delivering your value.
In fact, would you agree, fellas, that if you have one platform that you're crushing it on, that's all you really need?
That's okay, yeah. If that's where your audience is, absolutely. Like, why do we need to go and add something else? I mean, I think we're kind of lost in terms of, well, why would you do that, really, the fundamental question? Well, it's because most of us want to have a bigger audience and bigger business and more money and that sort of thing. But if you really look at it, it's like we're just kind of spreading ourselves a little bit too thin. And if you can focus on, you know, the core platform that works for you, then why not just carve out every single person that is, you know, dedicated and loves what you're doing, and tell that story, as opposed to, well, are you on Instagram, are you on Facebook Live, and blah blah blah. Like, find some focus might help too, as opposed to just saying, oh, we're going to be everywhere, because we have customers everywhere, right? Which is, sorry, it's bullshit. You don't have customers everywhere. You have to kind of focus in on your niche and what's important, and your customer is part of that.
I think that's totally relevant. I think the one thing though is, like, within that platform, you have to accept the fact that even though you're crushing it, the platform's going to evolve, and so you're never done, right? Like, it's like you're always working on your fundamentals of whatever that platform are, and then I think you just can't be too emotionally invested in a platform. So the day that platform is over and something replaces it, you can just cut it, drop it, move on.
As a futurist, I'm going to say one day, as I'm being silly, they'll look back and somebody will write an article called "The Day Facebook Died." Right? It's going to happen. Everything goes in cycles. It's kind of funny that as we're talking so much about content, I don't know if this is by design from Kelly and Sarah or not, but I know Mark Schaefer's going to be, this is going to be his talk, so I'm going to look forward to what you have to say about this.
I think the next thing, from a marketing standpoint, the next wave of innovation is on the conversion issue, in that when you can, right now there's so much friction when you go to sell something to somebody online. They would almost rather get in their car, drive to the store, and buy it there, and then drive home, than fill out another fucking form with address and postal code, right? Like, we're all so sick of that we don't even buy anything unless it's on Amazon anymore, because who cares? That problem is about to go away. So all these people that we have on Facebook and Instagram, all these audience members that are not a lot of value today, really, because you can't really get them over the hump into a purchase decision, you know, even though they want to, they don't want to do it. There's such a huge divide between you and them still. That's going away very soon here. So it'll take some time for that to develop, but your audience is about to get a lot more actually valuable to you.
You can see it in China, right? In that whole Alibaba ecosystem,
yeah.
right?
Well, WeChat is huge. I mean, they've been doing it already for 6 months.
You can convert from that to use Alipay. Boom.
Yeah, there's people on Instagram that have built amazing, like, $15, $20 million business. Somebody was talking about yesterday too, where they've circumvented Instagram because they can't get a transaction done there, so they're using other methods. So people are signing up for WeChat accounts, even though WeChat's not very popular here, just so they can process a transaction. And Facebook's the big one in this, because they have chatbots now that will allow you to process a transaction. So as you're talking to somebody or chatting with somebody on your Facebook page, you will then be able to send them a link that allows them to purchase something, and it's just a click, done, move on. So that's going to really change things for everybody here, for sure. We're looking forward to it. And it's great for us, because we only make stuff for iPhone. So we know that everybody that comes to our website, if they're going to buy something, they have Touch ID and they have an iTunes account already. So, fantastic. Changes the way your content plays too.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Question, Jared?
Hi, I have a question for Adam, just sort of going back to when you're talking about your kind of calendar and how you're kind of building that skeleton out. Can you just talk a little bit about frequency when you're sort of planning that really big picture? and then what you kind of do, I guess you're going to fill in the gaps with the topical stuff, but sort of what that skeleton looks like a little bit.
So the skeleton at the highest level will be based on what are the monthly themes that we want to talk about, and that's usually tied to the rhythm of our business, right? So there's an anticipation from our core consumers around when the new product drops in July, right? Like people are stoked, what's new, what's new, what's new. And so we have a content strategy around that, right? Like there's an emotional button we can push with our consumers. And then, you know, there's a whole emotional button that we can push in September, October, when people are starting to think about, oh, it's ski season, and they're starting to gear up and they're dreaming about all their moments. And then there's a piece around the holidays when people are gifting or thinking about where there actually is snow. There's a piece around in the spring when people are thinking about starting to plan their summer trips. And so we bake it around those things. And some of those are just traditional shopping times, and some of those are times when people are just super inspired around our activities, around our places. And then from there, we divvy it up by week. And then after that, from a frequency standpoint, it really depends on the platform, right? What we're not afraid to do is we're not afraid to republish the same content in a slightly different spin on the same platform multiple times. And we're also not afraid to reach back into the past of old content and resurface it. Because like that content comes and it goes. And you have to assume the fact that almost none of your audience ever saw it. And so you totally have the ability to just, instead of just constantly creating more, to go back and resurface those really cool stories that you told a year ago or 6 months ago or 3 months ago. Does that help?
Anybody else have a question?
I actually do. I'm curious, in this room, we have people that are working for companies, or you have a large team, and then we have the solopreneurs. So just show of hands, how many are with, you know, a company where you're working with a team? Okay, and then how many of you are solopreneurs? It's almost split. And so it's interesting listening, you know, because as a brand, you need to work with people to schedule that type of thing. When you're a solopreneur and you have the freedom to not do that, it kind of changes how you look at it.
Absolutely, especially when you have a lot of content, a lot of channels. You know, it's almost, you know, Brooke's point of quality, your point of quality. Picking a few might be an interesting direction to take as a solopreneur.
But if the point is not many people see your actual content, question to everybody too, is should you reschedule it? Should you reuse it?
Yeah, why not? I mean, you know, there's this, social is this ongoing stream, and Twitter being as ephemeral as it is, I mean, you post it, and from the moment you post it, you've got a few minutes where it can peak, and then it just drifts off into the ether. It's gone forever. So I love repurposing on Twitter. I treat Facebook a little more, less haphazardly, that I don't like to repurpose. I think if I was going to work my page, because I'm sure you guys have a page, you might repurpose there.
With Instagram, it's easy because if you've got something that you know really works well and you want to use it again and again, and you just delete it from your feed like a week later, and then you pull it out 3 months again, in 3 months, or sometimes in 2 weeks. Like it really depends on, like we've seen views on our videos. We used to get like, you know, I don't know, 60 or 70,000 views on a video that we would put on Instagram. Now that's like 10,000. So Instagram's sort of like flipping the switch on this thing now, so that you're gonna have to start paying to promote everything again, right? And so we sort of played with that a little bit, and it's actually pretty crazy right now. If you pay to promote something, it's like really effective. Because they're trying to like, you can see the psychologists at Facebook are just going overtime, like, we gotta get them, you know, get them in the mousetrap. Like, but yeah, I mean, you could totally repurpose everything. I don't know percentage-wise. This is a great question from Mark, our director of content. I would say he probably repurposes, you know, 15 or 20%. I mean, we have a lot of content that's created for us on hashtag and that kind of thing that we like to promote as well. So I'd say probably 80% of the stuff that we promote is not stuff that we've made, which is a whole lot easier. I think I talked about it before, which is get other people creating content for you. It's really easy. Just give them something for free and tell them to take a photo of something with your product in it, to win a prize. And you'll see 20 or 40 or 50 Instagrams go up, right? That's an easy way to get engagement. Costs you very little, you know, on your product side, and you know, it's fun. People like doing it, so it's not that's as old as the hill as that one.
Well, and it's way more powerful when your consumer's telling your story, right? Than
Yeah,
telling your story.
yeah.
Way more powerful.
You're giving them a little bit of incentive to open up, you know, and tell it. So
Awesome. Well, you know, I could pretty much guarantee we could keep going forever without even having to ask a question. But I think that's time is wrapped up. So I'm going to say thank you very much, gentlemen. That was brilliant. Really appreciate your time. Everybody, can you just give a nice round of applause for our wrap-up panel?